Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, November 14th. I'm John Weigell here with Juliet, Bennett, Ryla, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Dumb phones have had quite a resurgence lately, but could that expand to pagers? Sega sure hopes so. The company is set to introduce a new pager in December called Emo Jam, and we genuinely don't know if that's a good idea. So is there a real demand for a pager revival, and who is their consumer target? But before that, let's give you an update on the hits and headlines in business and tech. To start, stream no more over here. Amazon is officially shutting down its free streaming service, Freevee. You may have watched Jury Duty on it. I know I did. All the platform's content is going to be predictably moved to Amazon Prime Video, and there are murmurings from Amazon insiders on potential layoffs in the entertainment division. More layoffs, of course. Speaking of Amazon, the company just yesterday also launched an ultra-cheap answer to Temu and Shein. Amazon Haul is being beta tested right now on the company's app and offers clothes, electronics, and more for $2 on the low end of the spectrum. And nothing there costs over $20. Now, if we could just translate all that to the McDonald's near my house. From there, we go to Lunchables. Kraft Heinz is removing Lunchables from the National School Lunch Program, a federally assisted program that provides low-cost lunches to nearly 30 million students. This is all after a lack of demand and reports of high levels of sodium, lead, and cadmium in the school lunch kits. I don't know what those last two really do in the lunch kits, but yeah, I mean, I could tell you the sodium's high in Lunchables, no problem. From there to the movie business, after some huge ups and downs this year, like Dune Part 2 up and Joker 2 down, Warner Brothers is going back to the well. Entertainment Weekly reported that there's a Game of Thrones movie in early development there. It's unclear what storyline or timeline it's going to follow, but I guess it's not a bad idea to milk a show with 59 primetime Emmys. What do you think about this, Juliet?
You know, I get it because I was just looking up House of the Dragon viewership. House of the Dragon came, of course, after what many consider to be a disastrous end to Game of Thrones. And when it premiered in June of 2022, it had 10 million viewers. That was HBO's biggest series premiere ever. And season 2, it hasn't been quite as popular. I don't know if that's because people just are like, I'll get around to it. But there's still pretty big numbers. Yeah. The average number of viewers per episode for season 2 is 25 million, down from 29 million average for season 1. So I think there is definitely room for more Game of Thrones. I think people are still kind of into it, or at least they're still into the world that George R.R. Martin has built.
Yes.
So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we know that people love to reboot IPs and franchises that have worked for them in the past. Game of Thrones is certainly a big one. And yeah, I think it's just a question of where in this massive thousands years timeline are you going to go? I kind of wouldn't be surprised if they went back to the original well and they were like, here's a movie about what Arya is doing on her little boat that she sailed on. Or,
yes.
I wonder what's going on beyond the wall. Well, let's get Kit Harington back in the mix. So we'll see.
That could potentially be possible. I mean, kind of like what Disney did with Star Wars. There's just so much IP there to use. And it seems like they're trying to blow it out in similar proportion. But I really hope they do not marvel themselves here with 10 years of movies. But this is all early speculation. So we'll see what happens.
They should give us that Acme Coyote movie.
Oh, yeah.
Let us see it.
I've been waiting for that.
Let us see it.
Show it to me. And finally, hotels are getting pretty expensive. The Hampton Inn I stayed at for a wedding recently, you would not believe the bill. But the most expensive hotel room in the world right now is called the Royal Mansion at Atlantis, the Royal Hotel in Dubai. Sounds royal, no surprises there. But can you guess how much it is per night? Well, we can reveal that in the bottom of the ninth of the pod after the main story. Thanks to my birth year, I may have missed pagers and also fax machines, but it seems like some companies are aiming to bring back the 80s and 90s with new limited use tech. So Juliet, first question I'm going to ask here is, did you ever use or have a pager?
I did not. So I am a little older than you. I was not born in 1997. I was born in the late 80s. I mean, I was too young to have a pager, but I will say my dad had a pager. He was on call, sort of like a computer repair guy. And I remember him having a pager for those times when he was on call.
Wow. Okay. I like just the idea of being on call. That sounds pretty cool.
No, it's not cool.
I guess it's not cool.
It's stressful.
But it sounds kind of cool when it's not you, I guess.
Yeah.
So you haven't used one. I really haven't used one. They seem kind of a bygone era, but not anymore because it looks like Sega, it seems, is bringing back the pager or is trying to amid this kind of dumb phone mini boom in the past few years.
Well, here's the thing. Sega's pager is very silly. And it's definitely a pager for kids or people who really love emoji or puzzles, perhaps. It's coming out on December 10. It's called Emo Jam. I mean, are we old enough to have been through the emo phase? Emo Jam.
I think I went to an event at a club called Emo Jam recently where they played My Chemical Romance for 4 hours, but yeah, go on. Yes.
Oh, no. So yeah, this is a device that only communicates via emoji. There are over 1,000 emoji options, and they're actually different in Japan than they are here in the US. So they're emoji you maybe haven't seen before. And you can string up to 10 of them together and then transfer over Wi-Fi your message. So in the press release, it was kind of like, it's a puzzle. What do your friends mean when they send you, lasagna, cat, foot, pencil, whatever they string together? And, it's cute. It's kind of interesting. I was reading about it in Gizmodo, but it kind of got me wondering about the pager amid this dumb phone era.
Yeah.
And this is what I learned about pagers. I have learned that they are still in use. Now, not as much as they were in the 90s.
Sure.
So there's a company here in the United States called Spock. And in 1994, it had well over 6 million subscribers. And today it still has around 750,000.
Wow.
And you might be wondering, who are these people walking around with pagers? Well, doctors and nurses and people who work in hospitals. 80% of Spock's business is a part of the hospital systems. For a variety of reasons, there's a lot of thick walls, concrete, basements, cell service can be patchy. If there's an emergency, you need someone to come over here, boom, that's easy. It's also easy to send an alert to several people at a time. I found this a very interesting use for pagers, which is why birders like them.
Birders.
People who like to look at birds, yes. So you can quickly be like, hey, that rare bird, it's over here. And they also like them because they're just not very distracting. When you're out in nature, you're just like, oh, bird. There you go. It's not like bird. And also, hey, are you hungry? It's your Postmates app. Hey, you got a like on Tinder. Hey, your friend texted you. Like,
right. Lessen the distractions.
Right. And as I was reading about the people who still use pagers, there was this very practical use, which is like you're in a remote location, your cell service may be patchy. You just need to like send an alert out to a bunch of people all at the same time, whatever. But a lot of people in these industries had the option to switch from a pager to an app on their smartphone. And they actually preferred the pager because of how simple it was. And it sort of created this work-life balance where you're like, I use my pager at the hospital. I do not use my pager at home. I disconnect and I just go look at birds, and that's what I'm doing out here. And it reminded me very much of this dumb phone resurgence that we've been hearing about, where obviously that's still a niche. Most of us do have smartphones. But there is a market for people who are like, no, I want a Nokia brick phone that calls and texts and maybe tells me what time it is and what the weather is outside, and that's it.
No, I mean, understandable. And like kind of even going back to what you were talking about with the people that still use pagers, it's fascinating because like your point about remote workers, a lot of people actually use these who work on like oil rigs and mines just out in the middle of the ocean or out way underground. And it's a useful system for them. But I do enjoy the point that people have decided not to switch to a real phone over time. That's kind of like if I just had a separate pager for Slack or something that was on my desk, which doesn't sound awful, actually.
Yeah. And, I think it makes a lot of sense for people who are feeling like they're in this technology overload. In yesterday's newsletter, we discussed how it's not tech that's necessarily making us lonelier, but the ways in which we sometimes use it, where we're like, doom scrolling Instagram and getting mad because we don't have what this other person has. We're comparing ourselves. We're feeling shitty about ourselves. We have FOMO. We're texting instead of calling. So if our friend doesn't text us back for 4 hours, we're like, oh my God, my friend is mad at me. When maybe your friend is just like, I don't know, at the beach, And we have all of these weird behaviors that we've developed because of the ways in which we communicate now and the ways in which we use social media. And so there is this pull for people who are like, I don't want to be on social media. And, I was reading about people who had actively transferred their phone from a smartphone to a dumb phone. And they were saying that even though there are ways to sort of turn off your smartphone, like you can tell it, hey, don't let me open these apps after 9 p.m., that's very easy to disable. And they were finding that they were still doing that and still engaging in these negative behaviors. And what they really needed was to cut themselves off entirely from these devices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And the dumb phone resurgence is kind of surprising, but not really. I mean, I read some research from The Economist that said that dumb phone sales right now account for 2% of phone sales in America, which sounds small, but is actually quite a lot when you think about how much phones are sold in the United States. So there is some market here, and there are some people that really want this limited technology.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if, I know we've talked about the Twitter Peak before, which was like a device that only had Twitter on it, and obviously it failed because who wants that? But in reading these couple of stories and reading these few essays, I was thinking, if I could just go to the gym with an iPod and a device that told me if someone at work needed me, only Slack.
That would be great.
I would kind of be into that. And so I'm thinking, maybe it's not the dumb phone. Maybe it's you have your smartphone. Because a lot of people say, I need my smartphone because I need the GPS and I need the maps. The thing is, I can't even go to the gym without my phone because I have to use an app to log in. They used to have these little fobs, like a library card type thing. No, now I got to use an app.
That so
and then if my Bluetooth isn't working, I got to scan it.
God.
It's a whole thing. But I think there's a lot of people who say, no, I need my smartphone but maybe if you had a device that was just a pager, it was only contact me in the event of an emergency. Only let me know if something is wrong. I don't know. Maybe that's the solution. You have your smartphone, but then you have this other device. It's even less than a dumb phone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw someone trying to market something that was only your 5 best friends can contact you and it's just a beeper.
I wouldn't be surprised either because we have had this self-control conversation with smartphones before about, there are a couple things that came out like Brick that regulate your app usage or prevent you from using certain apps. And it's kind of like the idea of eating snacks. If you don't buy them, they're not in the house, you won't eat them. And I guess that's the dumb phone approach of I don't even have the capability to do this. So it's perfect. So I guess just some people need different ways to have that control.
So 1997 was the year that Buffy the Vampire Slayer came out. Perhaps you were too young for it.
I know of it.
And
yes.
And that is actually the most I know about pagers is there's this famous scene where she wants to go on a date, but she can't because she's the chosen one to fight against the forces of evil.
Of course. Hate when that happens.
Her mentor, Giles, is like, Buffy, you have this great responsibility. And she's like, yeah, but I'm also a teenage girl. And she says it's the late 90s. And she's like, so I can both be the Slayer and go on a date. And she says, if the apocalypse comes, beep me. And I was like, yes, she's going to go on a date and you can only contact her if it's the apocalypse. Otherwise, no. And Buffy does not have a smartphone because it's 1997. You can't send her a snap. You can't send her a voice memo. You can only beep her. Otherwise, she's on her date.
The way things should be.
And I was like, that makes sense to me, actually.
An apocalypse beeper only.
Mm-hmm.
And back to where I left off earlier, the most expensive hotel room in the world, which is the Royal Mansion at Atlantis, the Royal Hotel in Dubai, that costs $100,000 a night. So if you'd like to spend your net worth on one evening, this may be the most efficient way for you to do that. So have fun in Dubai. All right, and that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a ton more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get signed up at thehustle.co/email and follow us on Instagram at The Hustle Daily. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hi, everyone. It's Michael Calore, Director of Consumer Tech and Culture at Wired, here with my colleagues, senior writer Lauren Good.
Hello.
And Wired contributor Zoe Schiffer.
Hey, everyone.
We're here to tell you about our new podcast, Uncanny Valley, a show about the people, power, and influence of Silicon Valley.
Every week, we get together to talk about how technology and culture from the Valley is influencing our everyday lives.
We dig into questions like, will we ever get our privacy back? Is OpenAI for real? And how are Silicon Valley billionaires impacting U.S. elections?
The first episode of Uncanny Valley comes out on October 31st. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.